genre.
In the world of Hollywood, movies get greenlit and redlit. They get remade and rebooted. But we are the ideal. I'm Sam Gasch, and you are listening to Ideal Remake. Thank you for listening to Ideal Remake. We take movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. And today, this remake is too important to be left to Hollywood. It has neither the time, the training, nor the inclination for strategic thought. We're remaking Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, with returning guest Dillon Magrann-Wells. So, Dillon, is Not Romeo and Michelle, is Dr. Strangelove a movie that has been, will be, or should be remade? I go through so much effort to make sure, because I'm like, because...
Those two movies are always getting confused, so I get it.
So, is Dr. Strangelove a movie that has been, will be, or should be remade?
Yes, weirdly enough, it is back to be... It's weird because it's like a huge pendulum of like Cold War stuff, where you think like Cold War... nuclear proliferation is the least of our problems right now, but unfortunately it is still back to being relevant, and I'm sure we'll get into that. It's one of those movies you don't want it to be relevant all the time, but it's like, it is relevant again.
Yeah. I was talking about that I was going to be remaking this movie with some friends, and they're like, oh man, I wonder if that movie holds up. And I was like, no, it holds up too well.
Well,
that's
it's funny because it kind of flipped on what holds up about it, because before, I think in the 60s, like through the entire Cold War, the thing that held up about it was like how close we were to nuclear annihilation, and then the tiny little part of the general going crazy is like the part that is like the funny thing but the weird part, whereas now it's like there's obviously a lot of place guards in it, and we're not really that afraid of nuclear war anymore, as shown from last year when we almost got into nuclear war a few times. But I think the idea of like one person going insane in our structure of power is still really, really relevant, especially now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the comedy became real, because I don't like it. It's one of the reasons why a couple years ago I sat down to watch V for Vendetta with a friend of mine, and we were like, oh no. The part where they're saying the quiet part loud is the same thing that's happening now, where people are saying the quiet part loud.
Yeah, but I think this movie holds up even better than movies like 1984 or books like 1984 or V for Vendetta, because like in those like movies and books and stuff, it's always about like this overpowering government that's faceless and is just ruthless and cold and calculating, controls everything. And I think as the past 4 years has kind of shown, it's a lot of crazy people running it.
Yeah.
And it's not these things before we thought were like, oh, it's the president of the United States, or oh, it's Congress, or it's our military. We realize like they're still people, and that's really scary.
Yeah, and especially like after January 6th, where it's like, hey, here's the Congress people that are also QAnon people. And like the thing is that like Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper is basically a QAnon dude.
Yeah, because I was thinking about when I was thinking of the casting and everything. Hold on, I'm going to look up the dude's name just so I don't get it wrong. But the new Secretary of Defense, the Air Force dude.
The Raytheon guy?
Did a speech about how they're going to try to... No, Lloyd J. Austin.
Okay.
The third. And he's this very inspiring Air Force pilot that he's the first... I think he's the first black Secretary of Defense, if not. Can't cut that out. But he gave the speech about how he was going to try to get rid of QAnon and white supremacy in the ranks. And then they did a report, and he kind of had to do another speech afterwards where it's like, there's a lot. This is going to be a lot harder than we thought.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot.
And I remember when, after January 6th, they went through the National Guards trying to find all the Q people, and they were actually having to kick people out, where it's like, yeah, Q is a lot more powerful than you think. Or not powerful, but like
prevalent.
A lot more people listen to it. Prevalent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not powerful. Have you been watching the Q documentary on HBO?
Oh, no, I can't do that to myself. I'll be so mad.
It's one of the better things to do, I think, because Or how they did it, which is basically we're going to just spell out what Q believes, and we're going to show like this is who we think Q is, just to show how ridiculous it is. But I think it does give people this crazy notion that it's like, yeah, I'm part of this whole underground conspiracy. I'm part of the V for Vendetta, like fighting it. And it's like, no. There's not a huge conspiracy thing. This is just like the world is barely held together by duct tape. So you don't have to worry about it.
Well, speaking of figures hidden within the internet who live shrouded in mystery, Dillon, you have a podcast.
Yes, I do.
Tell us a little bit about your podcast and about yourself, since you are a returning guest, but you haven't been on Ideal Remake for a couple of years since we did Groundhog Day, not Groundhog's Day.
Yes.
2 years ago?
That was what we spent 30 minutes arguing about, yeah.
Yeah, and you were right, and I was wrong.
I produce the podcast, The To Read List, where it's a weirdly incestuous podcast of my wife, my best friend, and her brother. And Sam, you've been to our house. You've seen how many books there are in it.
Yes.
But the thing is, my wife has read like 10% of it. Hopefully it's grown more. But she made a deal that in order to get through them all, she was going to make a podcast. And we're going to randomly select books off her shelf. So I like have a number generator and each one has a number. And whatever I choose, she has to read. So they do 2 book reviews of like really sporadically different books. We did like Kazuo Ishiguro, like, The Buried Giant, which is like this huge like fat book with like my best friend's exorcism. Oh, actually, it was right here, like an 80s like thing. So we do like a really big variety of books. I'm on it. I've been on it sporadically a lot more because I will come in for like dad puns in the background, but it's also really hard, as you know, recording and talking at the same time.
Yes. And like being the person in front of like a sound mixer, which I do not own.
Yeah.
Prior to the pandemic, like my ideal way to record this is a bunch of people sat around a table with just an omnidirectional mic just capturing the conversation. Like that's the best way to do this.
Oh my God. We used to do it because her brother, Andrew, is in New York. So this is a bi-coastal podcast.
Yeah.
We used to record on Audacity and have 4 different sound files. I tried to sync up every single time. Mm-mm. And after a while, we realized we're insane people. And I have a film background and I have a very, very like basic hands-on stuff on a lot of things. So it's like, I know how to kind of record field sounds. So we're just going to do that. We're going to treat it like it's a film shoot.
Yeah, good. And so I've listened to every single episode of your podcast. I love it. You guys are a lot of fun. And I'm not, I haven't been a reader in so long. Just because my attention span is basically 5-minute YouTube videos.
Fair.
But it's great. I love it. It's super great. It's super great. If anyone's a fan of reading or just hearing about book reviews and kind of knowing what's in the pop culture or just like in the terms of the literary world, I think it's really good for that. My only note is when you're describing a podcast featuring your wife and her brother, I would not use the word incestuous, but that's just me.
True. That's a good catch. And especially the movie we're going to be talking about today, word choice is going to be very important.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And also, if you want, it's weird because it kind of does connect to the casting thing, because we used to do, like, who would play this person in a movie kind of thing. But then slowly, for some reason, we've been on a hot streak of, like, every book we've been reading. And maybe this is just because Amazon and Netflix are buying everything.
Yeah.
But it's, like, slowly, like, the next week you'll see on Dateline, like, oh, they're turning this young adult series into another TV show. It's like, well, there you go. Like, I think that my best friend's exorcism is going to be a movie at some point.
Well, it helps when most of the most of the books that get purchased and then left to the side and not read are books that are like on like the top 10 recommended books to read.
Yeah.
And then Bailey buys it and then leaves it in a pile. Of course, it's in a list of top 10 books to read. Other people are looking at those lists and going, we should own that.
And the thing is that I'm glad that I'm not on the podcast because my book choices are very dad and boringish. Because like I read like a lot of like nonfiction historical-y stuff about the Cold War.
Oh man, good choice of good choice of movie then.
I read either really boring books or really like simple books. Because I'm a reader, but not as advanced as because they always like weirdly throw themselves under the bus of like, oh, I barely read. It's like you guys are reading like 300-page books in a week all the time.
Yeah, that life sounds like I do a lot of research for this show, and their life sounds bad. Like I wouldn't be able to like reading's supposed to be fun, and it's homework now.
Oh yeah, no, it's not fun for them.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I make sure it's suffering for them.
I mean, it's a good thing that all three of them are the sort of people who liked homework when they were in school.
Yes, and to also come to the podcast for the games because we play a game at the end of it.
The games are fun. The games are the part that I wish I could participate in. So did you because when we were choosing movies to talk about, you sent me a list, but did you end up deciding on Dr. Strangelove just because of your love of Cold War era stories?
Yes, and also because I think in recasting stuff, this is a really interesting movie because of it had a bunch of serious actors in it doing really crazy performances. And I mean, it was funny because I had to think about it for a second where it's like, is it still relevant? And then like with the QAnon thing, it's like, oh yeah, wait, no, it is.
It's a QAnon general and a GOP appointee general who's like, yeah, more guns.
Yeah, exactly. And I think having it be, it's funny because in my mind, it's one of those weird things where it still feels like it's 2020. Like, it's so weird that a quarter of 2021 is already gone.
I don't like to think about it. Yeah.
But the thing is that if Trump was still president, this movie would probably be a little bit trickier. Because I think a huge crux of this movie is a lot of people trying to be normal and the insanity of it being normal. Whereas like, no, if Trump was still president, this movie would be over in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like nobody would be really trying to stop it.
Right, that's the thing.
But I think this, and when the movie came out, this movie came out in 63, like it was kind of the thing where everyone, like we just got over like the Cuba crisis and everything, and like, okay, we're all calm now, right? And won't happen again, right? So then when this movie came out, it kind of shows that like, no, even if people like everyone else in the chain of command are silly and crazy, but they're not like homicidal, except for one guy.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of a position we're in now, where we all like kind of having a collective like, oh, phew, we didn't die the last 40 years.
And then we're looking at it like, oh wait, we still could really die every day, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's a fun movie.
Do you happen to remember the first time you saw this movie?
Yeah, I think I saw it the first time I saw it because when I first like wanted to become like a filmmaker thing, my parents were actually like super supportive, like almost to a fault, because they are huge movie buffs too. So they kind of like let me choose anything from the AFI Top 100. And I remember this one actually, the title kept like turning me off to it. It's like, oh, that must be a weird movie or something from the 60s. But I remember seeing it like middle school or high school, because I remember wanting to do, and we'll talk about it more, but the telephone monologue for drama class, I really wanted to do that.
Ooh, good. I like it.
But yeah, I remember seeing it as a kid. And then in film school, we all like saw it. I think we saw it for a production design class or something. In film school, a weird thing is you see a lot of movies, but you see like a third of a movie, a lot of famous movies. So it's like a lot of times I'll think like I've seen parts of that movie. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I already loved Dr. Strangelove going in. And then I just watched it yesterday, 2 days ago, with Bailey. And it's funny because I was talking to Bailey about it, my wife, and she said she hated this movie when she first saw it in college. And she said it's like, yeah, it was just really boring, but it was also hot. And like, I just like, it was just a bunch of dudes talking. And she loved it this time. And I was trying to explain, like, it's because the movie starts off really dry, like, of them talking about planes a lot.
Yeah.
And it does start a lot sillier than I remember it, but like if you weren't paying attention, and we can talk about how this movie is kind of a weird remake, it seems very like by the books, like this is a nuclear war movie, and then how it slowly gets a little bit weirder because the people with the funny accents don't come in till like halfway through.
Yeah, and even that, I mean, it's basically an entire feature-length movie with 3 sets. Like, they're in 3 locations, and they don't
And the movie's
leave.
90 minutes long.
Yeah.
Usually when you talk about, like, you know, it's like, oh, this is a Stone Cold classic, but it also heads up, it's 3.5 hours long.
Right. And that's part of the impetus of the movie, too, because literally it's like, all right, we will be reaching our target in 90 minutes. And you're like,
yeah.
Oh, all right.
And I think if we spent longer with these characters and had to get like, you know, their wants and drives and like, you know, their full lives, like it might it'd be hard because a lot of these characters are so ridiculous in the moment that they're funny in small doses. So
That's true. And it also makes even the times when they're just like sitting there just wasting time with small talk, you're super conscious of it because you're like, no, this is real time. This is happening. What are you guys doing?
yeah.
And like the dumb small talk that you'd normally cut out of every script is important because it's literally wasting time against nuclear annihilation.
Yeah, exactly. And it does such a good job of like very few scripts, like, I think it opens with them with Ripper starting the objective R or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, like, the movie starts with them screwing up. Like, we're already in the middle, from the end of credits to the end of the other credits. It's all this one mission that's happening.
I mean, I wouldn't say screwing up as opposed to like making a
Murder.
Yeah. Doing
A little kerfuffle.
Doing a big O murder of what is it? What's the term? An entire people / country.
Yeah.
As one does.
To be fair, they did say it's only going to be like 8 to 10 million tops.
No, that was their best case projection.
Yeah.
And oh man, this movie's so weird.
Yeah.
So I first saw this movie. It has to, like, I feel like the first time I saw this movie was in the last 10 years. It's come up within the last few episodes, I think. But, like, this was one of those first movies that I grabbed off of, like, Netflix when they were still doing the DVDs. Like, I moved to LA and I didn't know anybody. So I signed up for Netflix and I just started getting a bunch of DVDs of movies I'd heard of but never seen. So, Goonies, Dr. Strangelove, the second Transformers movies, the big ones.
The classics.
Absolutely. And this was one of those movies, and it's one of those things that I'm very glad I saw at the time because it's just so relevant and it's come up so much in terms of other conversations about popular culture, and also just like learning about how crazy Stanley Kubrick is. It's like, no, the table had to be green. It's like, come on, man, don't be that way.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy.
Here's the thing. Like, if another film school person asks me, I will totally say, like, oh, yeah, no, Stanley Kubrick, he's a genius. He's, like, brilliant at everything. I mean, a lot of Stanley Kubrick movies, it's not that, like, I can give or take. They are brilliant in terms of cinematography and production design, but there's a lot of times where, like, the story isn't cohesive, if that makes there's very few times where it's like, oh, these characters that, like, he clearly loves. Whereas this is, I think, one of the few movies that is fun. And it's a ride and everything. Because, like, I think recently a lot of people have been talking crap about The Shining, and I'm not, like, 100% glad that it's happening. But also, The Shining's not as 100% scary as you remember it.
Right. I mean...
because there's famous scenes in it, and it's great. But there's a lot of, like, stuff where it's very moody and...
And it's also hard for something to be scary because fear, like, scary relies on surprise. And when everyone knows all the scenes, they're just not scary anymore.
Yeah, and I think a huge part of this movie is, like you were saying, like, he is super specific and super particular, except in this one movie case where Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, and I think a lot of people were allowed to improvise on this movie, which is insane, like, on a Stanley Kubrick movie, and it shows. It's weird to watch, like, Stanley Kubrick, but directing Judd Apatow style,
right?
Of, like, multiple cameras going.
Well, I remember hearing a conversation one time talking about Stanley Kubrick, and it was about how he wanted to make the best movie in every genre, because in addition to being very, very smart and a genius, he was also an incredible egomaniac.
Oh yeah,
absolute monster. Like, well, if it's a comedy, we gotta have funny people doing funny things.
Yeah, except this. Well, I think also he wrote it. But I think basing it off of another book. So this kind of works with, like, you know how the movie Airplane is based off of 0 Hour?
Yeah. Which
and it's like
might come up later in the season, depending if I am able to coordinate that.
And so I've never seen Red Alert, which is kind of weird because I've seen, like, a lot of Sidney Lumet movies.
Okay.
But I saw the new one with George Clooney, and I read some of Red Alert. And the Red Alert is this movie. Like, this was based off of a very serious book about, like, how the world could end in 2 hours. And Stanley Kubrick tried making it a serious movie, and then he realized, like, this is kind of ridiculous, let's make it a comedy. And so he brought in Terry Southern, who has, like, one of the coolest careers you've ever seen, of becoming a novelist, then, like, writing some of the weirdest movies. I was about to say best. It's like, he doesn't write Stone Cold classics. He wrote this. But then he just ended his career writing for Saturday Night Live.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Instead of using it when everyone else uses it, which is a launching point, he used it as a crash site. And I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he wrote like Easy Rider and like The Cincinnati Kid and a bunch of stuff because like he was just really just off the cuff funny.
I love it. That's amazing. So I guess if we're going to be talking about Dr. Strangelove, I think we need to start with, if it's a movie that most people have seen, I don't like going through and hitting beat by beat, but like, what are the parts of this movie that you really like, that are like the pieces of this movie that you want to make sure we hold on to?
The pieces that I think we need to hold on to are the president and the general trying to stop it from happening, and like they're talking about the plans and like the backup plans that sound silly, but it's like this is what we thought we were going to do. Like when he talks about like, you know, yeah, I know that we said only you could launch the bomb, but here's a bunch of other things that didn't happen.
Yeah, remember when we set up this thing just in case you died? Yeah.
And it's funny because I really love Ripper and we'll talk about him, but his whole fluoride thing now seems cute. It's like, oh man, I wish people talked about fluoride and that's it. But
I mean, A, yeah, it seems cute, and B, have you seen Godzilla vs. Kong yet?
No, although I am going to bring up Godzilla vs. Kong in a second.
Cool, because they literally have a character in the movie who talks about the fluoride in the water.
Well,
there's a crazy dude who like refers to like, do you drink tap water? Yeah, and he just refers to him as tap water the rest of the movie. This is still a thing.
The fluoride thing was, at the time, that was their Q conspiracy theory. Because if you want to get super, super political, at the time, this conservative society called the John Birch Society, founded by the Koch's father.
Great. Wonderful. So glad they have money.
That the fluoride people were kind of like the Dr. Fauci in their day, and the fact that it was a communist plot. And no one believed him at the time. But Stanley Kubrick read about this and thought like, hey, that's insane. Mm-hmm. But people in the John Birch Society, which was like a lot of senators at the time, believed it. So he kind of took that idea. So I think, oh no, where are we going to find conspiracy theories in today's world?
Yeah. I mean, plus the whole thing of, he has this whole line at the end when everything's like kind of slowly falling apart. He's like, I realized that they were after our liquids when I was like having sex and this woman took my essence. And like, there's literally groups now, like, I don't know if it's the Proud Boys or other groups like it, but literally it's like, well, you can't have sex or sperm is holy. It's only to make babies. And like there's another podcast I listen to called The Dollop, which is all about crazy cults and lunatics. Yeah. And,
I actually have a Dollop shirt somewhere.
Do you actually? That's amazing. And it's like, oh God, he's a crazy dude who thinks it's okay to be with women, but not to like finish sex.
Oh yeah, no. And I think that part's going to need some tweaking. And I think
why people still believe that now?
No. Tweaking in terms of like, I think one thing is that Mandrake doesn't know what's happening. And I think in this case, we as a society wouldn't be blindsided by that if somebody was talking like that.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about changing the dude who's with him, not the dude himself. Because the dude himself was
Mandrake
was dangerously real. No.
And it's funny, too, because, oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Dude that plays Ripper, while I look this up on it. Oh my God, he's famous in other movies, too, because he was in, like, The Killers and stuff. Sterling Hayden. Sterling Hayden was a communist.
Was he actually?
He was part of the Communist Party, and he had to show up to the HUAC commissions, and he gave people up, and he felt so guilty about it afterwards when he did this movie. Because he wanted to show like how crazy the people were that were trying to prosecute him.
Wow.
Yeah. That's called acting.
It is, but also don't give people up.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the time, though, I agree, don't give people up. I think it's more like don't give people up and then make movies about it, about how you were right, Elia Kazan. Yeah. I think it's more like when people were kind of forced to do it, it's like not a case-by-case basis, but it's just, ugh.
Yeah,
it's gross now.
It's a no-win situation, but also don't be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy. It's a good thing to like kind of see it now, and I'm glad that like he realized how terrible it was.
Yeah, I'm glad he made a movie about it instead of like making it up to the families of the people he turned in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. The thing is that like, other than bringing it forward 60 years,
Yeah.
there's not much in this I would change. We talked a little bit ahead of time about changing the country. And
Yes.
and I'd said we probably don't need to change the country because we could do the exact same story with Russia, but we decided to not do that.
Yeah, and I think that is actually something we're going to have to change because I had to brush up on my nuclear triad reading.
Yeah.
Because after this movie came out, they made really sure this could not happen in real life, that like all the fail states are in there. So I literally spent like a lot of time trying to I'm probably on a list somewhere at the NSA about like how would a nuclear war happen. So right now we still have B-52s.
Sure.
And they will be around for another 50 years, but they don't really use them for nukes anymore. They use B-2 bombers, which are two guys in a plane, and that's not as fun.
I mean, what they would actually do, and what's not fun at all, is they just load it into a drone.
Yeah. The way this could work. First off, do you want to reveal the country we chose?
Go for it.
We chose North Korea because technically this could be the closest we could have to nuclear war, although they still haven't perfected it yet. But it's still, running by a crazy person.
Yeah, I mean, the honest, actual, more likely scenario is either Russia or China. But
Russia and China right now don't have... They know... They found out that it's like, oh yeah, we don't need nukes to like wreck America. We can use a bunch of other things before that, and they don't care. So you need to find a country that's...
remember, it's not them using nukes to wreck us. It's us using nukes to wreck them because we're racist pieces of shit.
Oh yeah, and right now nuclear weapons are only used against North Korea as kind of like a deterrent,
right?
Because for like China and Russia, we'll say it's like we'll sanction you, we'll send more hackers against you. There's like a long list of stuff. Whereas like North Korea, we're already doing that. So right. Okay, this is the last thing we got.
But that's what I'm saying. Like in terms of like that's kind of like long term, like war of attrition kind of stuff. Like in terms of like some crazy racist like QAnon conspiracies, like the country that's actually slowly trying to take us over is likely going to be Russia or China, and then he figures out a way.
QAnon would probably actually help Russia if they heard that was going to happen.
You know what? Fair. Or like, I mean, because that's something else we could do is that this crazy QAnon uses all of like the backdoor coding to launch Russia's nukes at North Korea or at China or whatever.
Well, for the North Korea thing, I think one interesting thing we do every year is we do have like war games with them.
Oh God.
Or war games by them. Sorry, and like it's just more to remind them of that. It's like, hey, we still back South Korea and Japan, and China backs North Korea, and they watch us do it every year, and it's almost like. I am sure, I am not a military mind. I'm sure there's reasons for this war game, but it seems like every year it's just for us to poke North Korea with a stick and see what happens.
I mean, there's also
last year we didn't do it.
You can't imagine why. There's also the crazy thing of like, it's got like half of like having a military the size we do is posturing. I mean, like this, like the traditional, like, hey, look, it's a dictatorship is them having a parade with giant bombs going down the street. Like that's the political cartoon representation of a dictatorship.
Yeah. So,
which is North Korea, which is why we picked it. But it's like, in terms of actual dictatorships, theoretically, I'm only realizing this now. Theoretically, if we'd set this movie not happening in the United States, but happening in North Korea, that might have made more sense of like this tiny little country all of a sudden turning on the world because of someone there who really drank the Kool-Aid. Yeah. But go ahead.
I was going to say, if this happened during a war games or something when all the stuff is there and they didn't know that like, no, this is really happening.
Yeah.
And technically we do launch nukes from submarines now. That's a huge part of it. So one of my pitches was to switch it instead of from a B-52 to an Ohio-class submarine. So that way you get, because I think a huge part of it is having the crew that you're cheering on for.
I like
in
that.
the in the middle of these Korean War games, and changing Ripper to be, instead of a base in America, to have him be in South Korea or Japan, because those are the people that are directly impacted by it and have a little more control. Because, like, again, if you're in Seoul and your entire country might be destroyed in 20 minutes, they're giving a little more, like...
I think, but I feel like that makes it too real. Part of what makes Ripper, is... this is what one crazy person who gets too much power can do. And I don't think it should be real. Like, this is literally a crazy person. I don't want him in South Korea. I want him here in Arizona or Texas or whatever, just being a lunatic.
Oh, yeah. You can have him wherever they have internet.
Yeah.
But Dr. Strangelove, the crazy thing about it is that all the stuff Kubrick was an expert when it came to, like, all of this in terms of the nuclear war thing. And the stuff he's describing, from the jammers to everything that could go wrong, is real. Like, it's funny because the Air Force afterwards, and the movie opens up with, like, one of the best disclaimers ever, which is that Warner Brothers or whatever it is, like, is not pro-war, it's not pro-nuclear war. Also, the Air Force has assured us this couldn't happen, except the Air Force did change a lot of stuff after this movie because it was kind of accurate.
Yeah, well, one of the crazy facts that I remember about this movie is that the inside of, like, they were not allowed to film inside the B-52 bomber, and they had to guess and figure out what the inside would look like.
Yeah, it's based off of one photo that they found.
Right. And then the recreation of the thing they made was so scarily accurate that the Army or Air Force literally didn't know how they did it.
Did you ever hear about the when Ronald Reagan became president, he asked to see the war room? Like, he thought it was, like, from Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, yeah?
I was like, there's not really a war room. Like, we have a conference room downstairs that's, like, secure. Is that what you're talking about? And it's funny because, like, in our mind, because of Dr. Strangelove, speaking of it being real, we have this idea that, like, if something terrible like this was to happen, it would be in, like, this dark bunker with, like, huge maps and lights and, like, very serious men talking around a very serious table. But, like, we've seen pictures of what it looked like in the room when Bin Laden was killed. And it looks like everyone's crowded and there's not enough seats for everybody. And there's one dude on a laptop and that's it. Yeah. Like,
we don't have a big map. He can't see the big map. With all the little dots and arrows.
Exactly.
What is there to take pictures of with your secret watch?
Ooh, now that we're talking about China and North Korea, I think you can combine both of them a little bit by having the ambassador... Oh, crap, this is going to change my thing. Thankfully, I had a backup ready.
I mean, my ambassador is Korean.
I might change my ambassador to Chinese and then talk about it, but I have a Korean person for my ambassador.
In terms of things that are current and happening right now, there's an incredible rise in anti-Asian sentiment, and yes. like the whole Stop Asian Hate movement is real and it has to exist because that's a thing. And like the honest truth is that like there's a lot of people who are incredibly racist and are not going to draw a distinction between one Asian culture or another.
One of the other things I did too, and when we start jumping into casting, I can talk about this too, is that instead of, and kind of why I wanted to set it in a U.S. military base, but a U.S. military base in South Korea or Japan, because there's a crap ton of them.
Yeah.
But there's basically more U.S. military bases in Japan and Korea and South Korea than there are Korean army bases.
Right.
But having a Korean play Mandrake. So, because like, you can tell it was a stretch in the movie where it's like, here's the thing. Peter Sellers wants to play a British officer. We're going to have to find a way to wedge a British person in here, even though it doesn't make sense that he's there. Whereas I think you can make a case of having Mandrake be part of the country that has a huge stake in this.
Yeah, one of the other things we talked about was whether or not we'd get one person to play all three roles.
Yes.
And we both agreed that was, difficult to cast, but also silly. Because in this case, it was just, oh, hey, look at this amazing actor doing these things. But for the purposes
and apparently
of
the reason why...
Go for
it. The only reason this movie got made was because they got Peter Sellers, and he actually took up like half the budget because the joke is that he paid him for like 4 roles and he paid him for 4 roles and he played 3 because he was also supposed to be King Kong or Commander Kong, the dude Texan.
The dude in the plane.
And he said nah, I'm not going to do that. But for some reason they thought the reason why Lolita made money is that everyone loves seeing Peter Sellers do his bit of being different characters. Mm-hmm. So we should do that twice as much in this movie.
Yeah.
So if it was for like a shock thing, I think it can. Did you think of anybody that could do it?
I did, but we'll get to that later. But I think it's better that we don't do that because that was the reason people saw movies then. And unless you're going to see like an Eddie Murphy movie, I just find that distracting.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be able to top Norbit, so we shouldn't try.
Sure. So within the last month or two, I saw Mars Attacks for the first time.
Yeah.
And, oh man, I'm completely blanking on his name. This is embarrassing.
Jack Nicholson.
Thank you, Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson is like the president in that movie, and then he's also this random Las Vegas guy.
Yeah.
And it serves no purpose. They're not related. They're not secret brothers. It never comes up. It's just weird. And every single time the Las Vegas guy was on screen, I was like, that's just Jack Nicholson. Why is this important? That's Jack Nicholson. Yeah. Why is this important? And
I mean, it's basically stunt casting the movie. So.
It is. Yes. But it was never important. And it was just distracting the whole time.
Yeah. I think the reason it works in Dr. Strangelove because it's the fact that he's playing Mandrake, the president, and the person that he's basically playing all three kinds of side of like one straight man character, where he's supposed to be like.
Is he? He's playing two versions of the straight man character, and then he's playing the crazy guy.
He's playing the crazy character that's going to be the sane person when this is all over, because he's the one that's like thinking ahead to like, look, we're going to enter a crazy world, and in that crazy world, Dr. Strangelove's because he's the one that wins out in the end. Of like his insane thing. Also, it's an excuse for him to do a crazy voice. I'm not going to really go down this road of how accurate I am.
Yeah. So the crazy thing about a movie called Dr. Strangelove is we don't meet Dr. Strangelove until at least halfway through the movie.
Yeah, he does not have a lot of screen time, but he has like 2 ridiculously funny scenes, and that's it.
He's definitely the most memorable character in this movie by far.
Oh yeah,
but also because he's the most unique character in this movie.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that like it is, if they introduced him so early, it would be very easy to kind of write this off as like a broad comedy.
Yeah.
But because by the time we see him, we literally met every other character, and it's like, oh, and on top of that,
by the way,
yeah,
here's this guy whose right arm is still a Nazi.
Yeah. Oh man, I was researching it. That's a thing.
What?
Or not that arms are Nazis. Well, I mean, they could be. But that apparently there's a medical disease, and it's kind of known as Dr. Strangelove disease, although it has a bigger, more fancier name.
Sure.
But there's people that don't have control of their arm. Like, their arm does a separate thing. So, like, it'll be, like, slamming doors or stuff or doing Hail Hitlers.
Uh-huh. I think that's more common in people who've had I'm making the gesture, have the 2 hemispheres of their brain separated. So,
sure.
So my understanding of that disease and the way that comes up is that theoretically your brain is sort of 2 brains. Like you can live without one of the hemispheres of your brain.
Oh yeah.
But they coordinate and they each serve different functions unless part of it's removed, and then one of them does the whole thing. And there's cases of like epileptics who've needed to have part of like half their brain removed so that they can stop having seizures, and the other part just like picks up so there's just people walking around without half a brain, and there are people who for whatever reason like those 2 hemispheres are split, and you can put something between them so that one eye doesn't each eye is seeing separate things, and they won't know what, like the 2 brains won't be able to communicate and know what's going on.
So if you remove the Nazi part of your brain, that makes sense.
Basically, yeah. But like you could split it up, and half your brain could be a Nazi, and the other half could not, and they'd never know because they couldn't talk it out.
Yeah,
it gets a thing.
So that's how Peter Sellers qualified for 4 roles in that.
Yes, he split it down the middle both ways, each quadrant.
I also read something that he based Dr. Strangelove off of the still photographer on set, who was like Hungarian or something. And he would just he would come up and talk to him and record conversations with him and then base the accent off of that. It's like, that must have been awkward if a guy was working there.
Yeah, that's, so we want to play this guy who's Nazi and you're vaguely Eastern European. Your family was probably fine and not affected by Hitler at all, right? Hey, can I use you to play a Nazi?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? It's Peter Sellers. So in my head, all of this still took place in Washington, D.C., because, I mean, we still need to have the president.
No. It all still takes place in a bunker. Like, I think I was on the fence. Like, do you think it should be kind of the war games thing or the war room thing of like super intense, like giant concrete war room, or do you think it'd be funnier in a conference room?
Well, so one of the things I think is incredibly impressive about the movie is that it takes place in 3 locations. I still think we should do that. Like, there's there's the whole, can you have an entire movie that takes place of phone calls? Sure. But like, also, I think that works. Like, for this purpose, it's like seeing what's happening and seeing people's reactions in real time. It's a real time movie, and we're stuck here. And I think the war room in Washington, D.C. is one of the locations. I think a nuclear sub is a great second location. So I think we get to figure out the third one. And the third one, I think, should also be an army base. It can be South Korea. I'm willing for it to go either way because I think it's an army base. It can basically be anywhere.
No, that's what I was saying. That South Korea, the army base is more just the fact of like, it still looks like I grew up in Japan, and a huge thing there is that they don't really they have Japanese military bases, but a lot of it's American military bases, and when you're on them, it's basically America, and it's weird.
I've seen that. I've seen that episode of Simpsons. I know how it works.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, so you know what H is like.
Yeah.
But
of course, the Simpsons episode I'm referencing is the one that takes place in Australia with the American embassy in Australia.
Yeah, and I think having it, because I'm sure that will go over really well, but I think, and especially when we talk about like the filmmakers we would want to make this, it is also a good commentary on America kind of dealing with this very American story, but in someone else's backyard. And it's like, this doesn't involve you. It's like, it kind of involves us. You're playing with nukes on our peninsula, or you're kind of playing with nukes like 20 miles away from us.
I also like the idea, especially if the army base is someplace other than American soil, in that whoever political party is in power at the time would be like, oh, like this sort of thing could have slowly been happening until finally it like breaks through, but they weren't paying attention because it wasn't happening in America.
Exactly, yeah.
Which a whole separate conversation we could have is how people refer to the United States as America, despite the fact that there's a North America and a South America, and not all of that is just the United States. But that's a separate conversation, and there's a genuine movement in South America to get people to stop referring to the United States as America. But we don't listen because America!
Hey, they want to fight us for it? Let's go.
Basically, and I don't know why we don't take them up on it. America loves fighting in South America.
I know.
For freedom. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the idea of having the names in this movie are ridiculous.
Oh my god, the names can't change. Yeah. The names, or the Korean names would have to change, but all the American names, if they kept them the same and just had to say it with a straight face.
We may have to change the president's name, but we'll get to that later.
Ooh, yeah. The president's name, I don't know how well that would hold up, but...
poorly.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, Mandrake, which also is a name, might change because I don't think that dude's going to be English. I don't think that dude's going to be a caricature of an Englishman. And Jack Ripper can be someplace other than the United States. And I think putting them in South Korea makes sense.
What? Yeah, Jack D. Ripper.
And in fact...
It's subtle.
Yeah, we have the idea of the ambassador. In our case, it's going to be a North Korean ambassador. But there's no reason why this person, this Jack Ripper, this crazy QAnon conspiracy theorist, doesn't just launch a nuclear attack against all of the perceived enemies.
Good, yeah. And it could use the excuse of it. I do think it's weird because right now there's not like a very... And that's why I was thinking North Korea is kind of a good one of like, we have very few cardboard cutout villains.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that like, we think of it, obviously the North Korea... I do not say that the North Koreans are cardboard cutout enemies, but it's very like clear in a lot of people's minds, like North Korea is bad, the end.
Yeah, that basically, in the same way that a lot of people are like, Iran is bad, the end. And it's like, that's not true.
Yeah, and I think Iran's like kind of the second one. And we were talking about like if it could be Iran, and it could.
I think there's a lot of... there are a lot of people who are like just racist against Muslim and that whole area of the world also. People are racist against anything that's not the United States because go imperialism. But like the honest truth is that like Iran... Like, if we let the Iranian people, like, reclaim their country and we didn't keep attacking it, Iran was, like, a lot more progressive of a country and was, like, doing really well until the United States came in and shut all that shit down and basically installed the Ayatollahs, and then 10 years later, they were the enemies.
Oh, no, we didn't install the Ayatollahs, we installed the Shahs.
Yes, excuse me.
But the other thing with Iran is that we kind of did that last year with the Soleimani assassination with drones, is that like that basically should have kicked off World War III, and it didn't.
Because the Iranians are more level-headed than we are.
The only reason we're doing this is we don't want this movie to sink the Iran nuclear talks.
Yeah,
that's it. Meanwhile, North Korea, it's like they're not. Yeah, it's going to be the same.
It's because everything's so complicated and political, and obviously we're making a movie that simplifies it and has people speaking out of like racist caricatures of who they believe a quote-unquote enemy is, and we have to do that because that's the movie, and also we don't want to do that because that's not reality and that's not like how people work. And yet, so North Korea, huh?
Yeah.
And
it's a lot simpler.
Yeah, well, they're the easiest.
It reminds me of when they made that Red Dawn movie a while ago.
Yeah.
That remake, and it was originally China, because like, yeah, China's the bad guys. China takes over America. China's the new Russia, but then they found out like we can't do that because we rely a lot on China.
All of our money's
in China.
Yeah.
And so they had to CGI all the things to be North Korean, which is like, yeah, that makes sense. North Korea would be able to take over America.
Right.
But, and I forgot they like replaced, since the actors that were playing them were Chinese and they were speaking Mandarin to each other, they had to redub a lot of stuff that doesn't match. And like, it's just weird.
Not replace the actors though, because why would you?
So we're just learning that lesson the fast way and just saying it's like, North Korea.
Yeah. But I think we can use North Korea as the quote unquote scapegoat. But like really, this crazy QAnon person can be launching an attack against all of his perceived enemies of America.
Sure. Yeah.
And so of course, I feel like we can also learn that one of the bombs will be coming towards Los Angeles.
Oh, that he's firing?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, I could imagine that
because
and we can.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that will be... what I think we should do, instead of there being a country with, like, a crazy doomsday bomb scenario, is, like, we spend the entire time focused on this one ship with King Kong on it, but really we find out that there have been all these others going at the same time.
We also need to explain that when we say King Kong, it's because the pilot's name is... something Kong, but his nickname's King.
Major Kong, nickname King.
Yeah, so they make that super easy for us. No, I agree. I do think
it's what makes talking about this movie now relevant.
Yeah, comes out just in time. I do want to keep the Doomsday Device thing in there.
Okay.
Because it seems like an insane thing that one is like this is what the Cold War was kind of leading up to, but it takes away a lot of like human element, which I love, or it's the most like human non-human element, if it makes sense. I love the speech where like the Russian ambassador is explaining what the Doomsday Device is, because in the movie the reason why no one can really stop this thing is that if a bomb goes off, there's a machine that will destroy the world and no one can stop it. And I love the Dr. Strangelove speech where it's like, actually it's a genius idea and we should have done that a while ago. But
yeah, and then he says the line, but the whole purpose of having such a machine is that it's to prevent exactly scenarios like this from happening. And then
because you're supposed to tell people. It's like, yeah, we want to tell you next week.
Like literally, we have a big fancy press conference announced for Monday. You missed it by a weekend.
I can imagine North Korea doing that.
I can imagine every country doing that.
Yeah,
like you have the thing, and then you do a big news thing. Like you pick a slow news day, and you make it the story.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that's kind of our 3 locations. Our people stay mostly the same. What other pieces from the original movie do we need to keep?
You would need to keep that. You need to keep, I mean, obviously the characters and everything. Yeah. It's funny because I'm thinking like the military thing. Like it is easy. It's weird because like even before the internet, a lot of this really relies on communication breaking down.
Yeah.
Like the fact you can lock down a base and no one will find out about it.
Yep.
So it's like they cut off the Wi-Fi or someplace.
I mean, honestly, yeah, that would do it. Like, literally, he can walk into the office, lock the door, unplug the Wi-Fi, the entire base shuts down.
Yeah, and that's also what I was thinking about the submarine, too. It's like, you can, hypothetically, do it, but, yeah, I think, the world just needs to end at the end of it. It ends with them releasing COVID. It's like, God damn it.
I mean, I think nuclear annihilation is fine. I think we've learned that a pandemic won't stop us.
I think that is one of the weird things, is that we had such an insane year last year that some of this movie almost doesn't seem insane enough.
Honestly, fair.
Yeah, so I think that's why keeping the Doomsday Machine, or like it has to be end all be all. Like,
yeah, I think you know what, I agree with that. The other thing I would say is that the movie kind of has like staging locations. Like there's that first scene where we see Lionel Mandrake. There's the room where who's his face? General Buck Turgidson. What a terrible name. Is like sleeping with his secretary. I don't think we need either of those locations. I literally think it should just be 3 locations.
Yeah, I think there is, although there is, B-roll footage of the attack and the people trying to fight in the base, which is kind of funny because it was one of the first times they filmed a war scene like that, and it's like a throwaway gag, but it's weird when you watch it now in context, where it's like they kind of filmed like a Saving Private Ryan moment in the middle of this comedy. So obviously at the base, like there's going to be like, gunfights and stuff, which could have some humor there. But yeah, no, I definitely agree on that. Yeah, the secretary scene is funny. I just don't know if it's necessary now.
If we do the Saving Private Ryan scene, what I think we would need to do for that is, because it's literally 2 sets of American troops fighting each other. Yeah. What I think we need is, if we're going to have those scenes, I think we need to have a quote-unquote the speech coming from a general or a lieutenant on either side. They give the same speech, inspiring the same soldiers to attack each other.
Oh, yeah. And that's the one thing in this movie I kind of wish that Buck and Ripper talked to each other at one point. Because it seems like they're both insane, but one just happens to be insane for us right now.
Yeah, well, I feel like they're both insane for America, but in different ways. Yeah. In the same way that there's like there's the QAnon Trump supporter, and then there's the gun nut Trump supporter. These are those 2 people.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I agree with you. But yeah, so like if we cut away from our 2 scenes, it's for the purposes of like a little mini 5 to 10 minute war movie, when it's just both sides are Saving Private Ryan, and they give the same Independence Day speech.
Would you still use the Johnny Goes Marching On time every time you cut to the plane, or some in this case?
Yes, because I think the score of this movie is such an important thing, and I'm literally planning on ending this podcast episode with "We'll Meet Again."
Oh yeah,
because we have to.
Yeah, exactly.
And I found this video on the internet that was like played "We'll Meet Again," because basically the whole purpose of that song is that like, we're going off to war, we're going to die. When we meet again, it will be in heaven. That is the purpose of this song. And so then they also found a clip of, I don't remember the name of the actress, who is singing this song with the Muppets.
Yeah, well, I mean, when they served in Vietnam.
Yeah. All of those PTSD affected Great Gazoo stories. Oh God, they're just firing RPGs, but like, who's his face? The bird with the nose.
Oh, Gonzo.
Yeah, with Gonzo just on the RPG flying towards.
Yeah, that's what I should have pitched. Is like, we should just recast this with Muppets.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
It's not the worst thing to think about.
We could do it. And, of course, you'd think Kermit the Frog would be the president. No. Kermit the Frog would have to be Lionel Mandrake. Yeah. The president would have to be...
No double casting now. We could go down this road. That's like it's like a 2-episode podcast. Like, okay, this is the Muppet version, this is the human version.
The president would have to be Fozzie Bear. There, I said it. Yeah. Because Buck Turgidson would have to be Sam the Eagle.
Oh, true.
But yes, you're right. We can't do that. It's too much. Anyway, here's the rest of them in Muppets. Okay, cool. So then what else? So we've talked about what, like, the important things to be. We've kind of talked about what our changes need to be. What else is important for our version of this story? Because obviously getting people on the line, having phone calls is so much easier now, but we can kind of just skip that and just have phone calls to cell phones and all of that.
You can even have Zoom meetings.
That's true too. And that would require more casting that I did not do. But yeah, I mean... No. But yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And like, we can have... You're right. No phone calls, Zoom meetings, video conferencing. And it's... Those video conferences will be made more interesting by whatever's going on in the background on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
To the point of, do we need to have the actual ambassador in the war room?
Yeah. I was thinking you didn't, but then I think it's such a fun bit. I don't know. I think I can go either way.
I could go either way, especially because like the idea of the general just attacking the ambassador, I think is an important part. And it's like, look how crazy this guy is.
And the other fun thing in this movie is how the ambassador reacts to everything.
Yes, I agree with that.
Especially there's one time where like Dr. Strangelove's talking where he's like kind of nodding with him. It's like, yeah, this guy's right.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I would do is, so in the movie, there's this scene, like kind of the ambassador's like just this angry Russian guy. And, oh man, look at this commie. I would just like make him kind of like I mean, I'm doing my job. I'm not evil. You think I'm evil, but I'm not evil.
Oh, yeah. I have an idea on who to cast for the ambassador.
All right. Well, when we get there, we'll get there. Because, yeah, like, I think that it's going to be like no, that's the caricature you paint of us. We're not actually that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I can't believe this is the assignment I have. Like, one of those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. For that reason, it's important. And I think because I think there should be a moment where, like, power gets cut and they have to still have interactions and everything.
Yeah. And at this point, I think in 2021, people are sick of Zoom. We can't have every single scene be on a meeting.
I mean, there's also that. I'm so sick of Zoom while I'm currently on a Zoom.
Yeah. This is the worst.
Yeah, this is no fun for anyone involved. Okay, cool. Well, then, in that case, let's talk casting.
All right.
Everybody has books on their shelves they've been meaning to read. I have 140. I'm Bailey, and this is a podcast where I attempt to finish my to-read list. With the help of my friend Toby,
hey,
my brother Andrew,
hello,
and my husband Dylan's the sound recordist.
Hello.
In every episode, we choose a book at random from our shelves and review it with facts about the author.
And I design a game at the end of each episode that somehow mixes our books together. And sometimes they do very badly at it.
But it's always fun.
Yeah.
So if you love to read or you've been meaning to read more, you should tune in to the to-read list.
Books.
So the order I have it in is the order that it was listed on IMDb. So I guess let's start with Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, which will not be his actual name.
Yeah.
Who is the Englishman in the movie, but not in our version.
Yeah, so in my version, I made him South Korean.
Okay.
Because South Koreans would work with American military. And I think it'd be funny because in Dr. Strangelove, he's kind of the voice, he is the only voice of reason. And it's weird, a British person telling American where it's like, hey, I think you're a little bit too crazy military-wise. It's like, okay, England. But in this case, I used Randall Park.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because he is such a great, like, straight man against craziness. Mm-hmm. And he also played Kim Jong-un in the interview. But that doesn't help him out.
No.
But I think him reacting off of a crazy person and, like, he also has a meekness, too. Because there's, like, Jason Bateman, like, I can react off of anything and, like, make it funny. But, like, the idea that he doesn't have a spine as well, that's another problem with Mandrake.
That's true.
Because he lets a lot of this slide. And I can imagine Randall Park, like, playing that really well.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good casting. I kind of went in a similar vein in terms of like comedy best friends. Yeah. Like the person who's there to be like a friend and support this, whatever this dude's crazy thing is going, but also like maybe don't do this thing. And I also kind of wanted to avoid of doing the caricature of someone else from another country. So I did go with an American guy, and that's why I went with Don Cheadle, who is someone who can do the comedy, can do the drama, and is very, very funny, and played Captain Planet in the best possible way.
Yeah, but I can imagine Don Cheadle also reacting very fast. Like, he would not let a lot of this slide.
That's
like,
true.
He'd be very fast to call people out on this.
Yeah, that's why I think you're probably right to go with Randall Park. Yeah, I think Randall Park's probably the right choice for this. Which brings us to our crazy QAnon guy. We didn't really talk about what's going on in the submarine, but it's like everything that happened in the regular world.
Yeah. And I can talk more about, like, how I would use my guy, but I really liked the airplane scenes when we can't give previews to what's happening.
Yeah. Let's talk about Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper.
Yeah. So
it's Jack the Ripper.
It's funny because I kept thinking of like actors that can be very intense and crazy. Mm-hmm. So I went with Lance Reddick.
I don't know who that is offhand.
Yeah, you do know who he is if you saw Godzilla, because apparently he was in it, although not for that long. I thought it's like, oh, he is kind of relevant still. He is in John Wick.
Yeah. I love this
He's
guy.
the maitre d'. He's in The Wire. He plays the most no-nonsense person ever. However, he is also on Corporate, and he does a lot of Funny or Die videos where he just gives insane speeches, and he sounds so intense and scary. Because I think there's people that can give like crazy, but like you just don't believe them. But in this case, like whenever he gives a very slow speech, and the way he gives speeches is so great. And like if Lance Reddick became a Q person, I'd be very scared because he is very intimidating and persuasive.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen his performance in Corporate, it's so great because basically it's like basically imagine the Wire guy, but instead of less morals, he's a cutthroat CEO, and he knows he's crazy, but he hides it so well.
The thing I know him from is like he's the concierge in all the John Wick movies.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because it sounds like he's doing an accent in the John Wick movies. I just can never nail it down. It's like it's fancy. That's his accent.
Yeah, correct. So my logic behind it is I wanted someone who's intense and no nonsense, but is very, very capable of being funny and is open to self-parody. So my guy is someone who's been in Better Call Saul and Mudbound, but also was in Community. And it's an actor named Jonathan Banks.
Oh yeah, Jonathan Banks.
And for this one, I kind of feel like it's important for the person who's ending the world to be a white guy.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I had also Christopher Maloney and Michael Shannon on my list. But it was more just performance-wise. I love Lance Reddick monologue reads. Sure. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think having Q people are it's not inherently white supremacist, but it's pretty much white supremacist.
It pretty much
it's
is.
Like just because like of where it was from and everything. Mm-hmm. I do think it's funny because Jonathan Banks gives a less like deranged performance, but he gives more of a like he just believes it and there's no like yes or no with it.
I want that full intensity like Jonathan Banks performance, and then he just says the craziest shit about not being able to let any like we have to protect our fluids.
Yeah. Or in this case, it's like when you start talking about Q stuff about like Pizzagate, you can just have him read like some of the Q drops and just verbatim, and that's it.
Genuinely, yeah. Like that's what we can have him do. Like that's kind of what I thought would be funny. So yeah, Jonathan Banks. So then the next person we meet is Major Kong, nicknamed King, Major King Kong, the cowboy hat guy.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was casting him, I originally just said like, oh yeah, it's Danny McBride. Easy. Next one. Because it's like you're looking for Southern trash. But then when you rewatch the movie again, you forget that like Kong's a good guy.
Yeah.
And like you are actually cheering for his crew in his sections. Like you want them to succeed, but then you have to remind yourself, like, wait, if they succeed, they destroy the world.
Right. Like,
and like
we don't want him to win, but he's generally favorable, and he's just doing his job. He's not questioning the job and shouldn't be doing the job. And there's something to be said about just following orders blindly. But generally, like he's like, if they're calling this in, things must be so bad.
He just gives like an aw shucks performance. And the thing is, he's good at his job too, surprisingly, even though he seems like a yokel. So that's why I had to go with another Southern character or Midwestern character that is deceptively good at their job and charming, and that's Jason Sudeikis. I'd have Ted Lasso in A Nuclear Submarine.
Oh man, that's a choice.
Because especially when he was doing like the metaphor, I forgot what some of the metaphors he was using. I just remember when he's reading out the list of stuff, and it's like, we have some water, some like 16 pairs of prophylactics. I guess you have a good weekend in Vegas with this.
Yeah,
like he's just so charming and stuff. It's like, yeah, it's not because when I was thinking Danny McBride, it's like, oh yeah, no, it's like a F you America, like Southern, like falling for this whole thing. But it's like I get that character. The point of it is it's the good part of America, and the good part of America is going to destroy us.
Yeah, I mean it's the no nonsense, get the job done kind of guy, but with a positive attitude while he does it.
Yeah,
it's someone who sees the job in front of them without necessarily thinking about the wider implications.
Yeah.
So I kind of went with someone also, and I know that both of our lists are going to be full of mostly A-list people, and in this case, I went with someone who's less well known. He is someone who's been in a variety of like fun comedy things, and you look up his picture and you'll see some of like the screenshots from stuff he's been in, and you're like, oh, this guy just seems fun. And I'm like, that's kind of the person you want for a role like this. He's also a large man, and especially considering that he's going to have to climb into a torpedo suit tube to kick the door open, then get caught in the torpedo as he gets carried off into space, and then we see him in space gazing up at the stars and being wowed by it, and then getting caught on the torpedo again as the nuclear payload finally comes crashing down to Earth, which is the only way I assume we can do this.
Yeah. That tracks.
I went with an actor who's been in People of Earth, Her, The Campaign. It's an actor named Luka Jones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine him. I think the one that it's weird because now we're on a nuclear submarine, like how old is Luka?
That is an excellent question.
30s, right? I can't imagine him like cleaning up for it though. Yeah. Isn't he also on? Hold on. Wait,
Luka Jones is 45 years old.
Jesus Christ. He's also he's on Shrill too, right? That's
I think so. I think it's.
I was trying to think about his big one. Yeah, because like the slacker boyfriend kind of thing of like him. Yeah. Oh yeah. And if not Kong, like having him be on the ship.
Right. Yeah. Like he's someone who. Like taking that kind of the idea of the slacker boyfriend and someone who isn't the slacker boyfriend, but like kind of still has that same mentality.
Yeah.
Of the other guy from The Odd Couple that's not Felix. Doesn't matter.
Oscar.
Thank you. A real Oscar.
Yeah.
But an Oscar who gets shit done. Just one of the guys. And that's kind of what I thought would be important because he's like, hey, we're all here, we're doing this job, but we're together.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's why I thought Luka Jones would be fun. But yeah, both of those are good options, though. I feel like I'd rather go with Luka Jones over Ted Lasso.
Have you seen Ted Lasso?
No, it's literally the thing I need to watch next for a variety of reasons.
It's such a good performance. Oh my god!
But like, we're gonna have enough distracting like people that I'm like, in this case, let's go with
Slim
Luka
Pickens
Jones.
is literally the most distracting. What is like the second most distracting performance in this movie?
Who's Slim Pickens?
Slim Pickens is the original guy, the guy that talks like this. And there's a funny story.
No, I meant like I don't want people to be watching this and going, "That's Jason Sudeikis on a submarine. This is gonna be fun."
There's some story that James Earl Jones thought that Slim Pickens was like a really good actor, but he was like a method actor. And someone had to explain to him, it's like, no, he just that's just him.
Yeah. And whenever someone has like the caricature, like the acts that people use whenever they're doing a caricature of a culture, you're just like, oh, buddy, no. I know that's who you really are, but I'm so sorry for everything that society has done.
In Slim Pickens' character, like, that's just him. And it's funny because they originally tried to get, like, John Wayne, and I forgot, like, a long list of cowboy actors to do it. And, of course, them all being cowboy actors thought they wouldn't work with this commie Kubrick. Mm-hmm. And so they just told Slim Pickens that this was a war movie and filmed it that way.
Great. Oh, man. Poor guy. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to get the job done. All right, cool. So then let's move on to President Merkin Muffley.
Yeah.
I don't know what name we're going to have for this character, but it's not that one.
Yeah, it's fair.
Especially because I gender swapped this one.
Oh, okay. Do you want to go first for them for that?
Yeah, you went first for the last one, so it's my turn anyway. So I want someone who... Because the president basically plays like just the straight man. It's like, oh man, all this crazy stuff's going on. While also being very personal and also like you can see the reaction in their face. And I want someone who's like a really good face actor, but also would be like, oh, I can't believe I have to deal with this again. Oh my God. Just like one of those. And so I went with someone who is such a versatile actor that they've been in Annabelle, Captain America Civil War, 12 Years a Slave. I went with Alfred Woodard.
Alfred Woodard?
For the president. Yeah. I think she'd be a good president.
Yeah. No, I think that's the thing, is that I think she'd be a good president. I think a huge part of this character, and why he has a terrible name, is that he gets disrespected like a lot. Like if a competent... That's what I was thinking, like the whole point... The reason why I think this movie would be like topical now is like what president could be like kind of pushed over really easily to let this happen. And like, because Alfred Woodard would shut this down very quickly with the general and stuff. Because I can't imagine her playing someone that gets...
That's a fair argument.
Yeah.
The thing that I was going for is I was trying to think of like the sort of person that this sort of guy would just ignore. And I think it's like, you pick like the sort of like right-wing person who's like, it's a lefty guy who doesn't understand what real combat's like. Like, you can imagine a Trump general just bowling over Biden because Biden's a pushover.
Yeah.
But I could also see them just being like, this is a woman, and war is a man's game.
Yeah.
And so that's why
I'm not saying that people wouldn't react to it that way. I'm saying more that like she would fight, like
she wouldn't get pushed over. She wouldn't get pushed over. She would fight.
She would fight back hard. I mean, that's why I chose.
That's fair.
For my casting thing, it's almost like when I was watching the phone scene, and I was talking to Bailey about this too. There's a scene where it's only one end of the phone line, and he's awkwardly explaining to the Russian and to the Russian premier that he accidentally started a nuclear war, and please don't be mad. But he's being really nice. And that's why I chose Eugene Levy.
Ooh, that's good casting.
Because basically, he, for the past, like, besides him being, like, the best straight man ever, he is also really good on the past Schitt's Creek of having to deal with, like, a crazy family and everything. And he is still out of touch. He is not, like, representing us at all. We do not see ourselves in Eugene Levy. But true. He is still, like, the way he is so exasperated all the time. And especially, like, thinking of the phone call and thinking of, like, him being 5 steps behind and still realizing, oh, I still have to be in charge. And nobody listening to him.
That's true. That's a good choice. And it doesn't bother you by the fact that he's Canadian and can't legally be president?
He can be naturalized.
I don't know. I feel like to be president, you have to actually be born in the United States. Like, that's a rule.
I know. That's why Peter Sellers had to be reborn in the America for this.
That's exactly true. I was born, reborn, and that's why I'm a Baptist. Eugene Levy is good. The reason why it was important for me to have a woman here is because I cut the only other woman in this movie.
Yeah, I added a woman too, though. Or I added 2 more after this.
Okay. Then I'll tentatively pencil in Eugene Levy now, but that means that you're likely going to get more later, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Nah, it's playing the game. I think more the fact that, like, I also, because I was thinking, like, oh, you make it like a Hillary Clinton character if you wanted to, but I felt bad too because it's like Hillary Clinton would also be able to handle this situation.
And I think you're right. And I think, like, I think that that's a good argument of, like, a lot of the women who get to these positions of power because they're tough enough to fight back against this constant stream of just masculine bullshit.
I mean, to be fair, masculine bullshit is what causes half this movie, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's true. And that's probably why it was a good reason to have a male president, because a female president would be like, no, shut this down now.
Yeah.
Or, like, literally blow them out of the sky.
Yeah. And so that's why I have Cate Blanchett playing General Buck. No, I don't.
I mean,
she could. Look.
She could.
It's amazing.
It's a good choice. But.
No. Is he next?
Yeah. General Buck is next. Tell me who you have for General Buck.
Okay. So General Buck is really weird because about George C. Scott's character. And, like, there's so many actors that could easily do this. Like, this is basically like a Michael Keaton performance or an Alec Baldwin over-the-top performance. But one I wanted to see, and it sucks because, like, he almost did it in last movie he did, was Brad Pitt. The reason why is because I miss Brad Pitt when he was doing crazy roles or, like, sloppy roles, like in Snatch and 12 Monkeys. And now he's doing, besides Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I am not a huge fan of, but War Machine, and which on paper, I should love War Machine. I read the book and everything, and he is good as the general. It's just not a good movie, but he nails something down about how generals have to be today and are still, like, kind of crazy people. And I kind of wanted to combine all that performances he's done in Glorious Bastards and War Machine with the stuff he's done earlier to be kind of a general that's too enthusiastic, or like a Burn After Reading, but he went to West Point.
Interesting.
Because, like, at the time, like, George C. Scott was a very famous A-list actor that this all happened to.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's an interesting take. That's part of the reason behind who I had. I have someone who is recognizable and he's, like, a known name, but when I hear the name, I think of, like, oh, this actor, but I can't necessarily picture his face. So I would definitely describe him as A-list, but not to, like, Brad Pitt level. But, like, I
was just gonna say, it's like, I got Brad Pitt.
Yeah, no, not to that level. Like, A-listed, like, his name's super recognizable, but for whatever reason, I can't picture his face. But he is an actor's actor. Like he is able to, like, really dig in and get to the heart of characters, but he's also very capable of playing, like, the military guy because he was in Training Day. And he's also, like, part of the thing that I was looking for when I was trying to get this actors, I literally was looking for an actor from Texas.
Oh, Scott Glenn?
No, but I went with someone who was in Training Day, in Boyhood, and in the Before Sunrise trilogy. I went with Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, no, I had Ethan Hawke on my list too.
Yeah.
Mainly because, have you seen The Good Lord Bird?
No.
If you see The Good Lord Bird, you'll be very satisfied with that pick.
Okay.
Because he also plays a insane zealot that I think there is an art for crazy people, for when you're playing like insane zealoty people, to kind of like they see past like even logic and everything, because there's a lot of actors that play crazy where it's like, look how wacky I'm being.
Yeah.
And then there's some actors that are good actors that are like, Ethan Hawke or Brad Pitt, or like Academy Award. Oh man, Brad Pitt has an Academy Award now. Academy Award winning actors where they play characters that you see them believing it like all the way.
Did Brad Pitt not previously have an Academy Award?
No, he didn't.
Really?
Or no,
Oh.
he had a bunch for producing actually. So every time it's like Academy Award winner Brad Pitt, kind of. I think they're very similar takes of like, I know Ethan Hawke can do crazy now thanks to Good Lord Bird, and I know Brad Pitt can do like Southern military general. So either way,
let's go with Ethan Hawke then, because you've already hinted that you're going to be getting more.
Yeah.
I'm metagaming.
Well, here's the thing: if he can grow a huge beard out like Good Lord Bird, that even makes it better.
I mean, all the pictures of him that I found was him with a big beard, but of course, if he's playing a general, he has to shave it. So the next person I have on my list is Russian ambassador Alexei Desidesky, which obviously won't be his name. But we both cast Korean actors for this.
Yes.
You went first for the last one, so I'll go first for this one. I found a Korean actor who kind of fun, but also can kind of be tough and kind of walk that line between them. He was on Train to Busan. He's going to be in the Eternals. I meant to look this up, and now I'm going to butcher his name. It was Ma Dong-seok.
Ma Dong-seok?
Yeah.
Wait. The second guy. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's right. And Train to Busan is dope.
Yeah. And so that's why I thought he would be a good person for this role. But
yeah,
he's a little bit more of a 1-for-1 than I think the kind of person that we ended up with. But like where we ended in terms of like story. But I still think he's a good choice.
Oh yeah, no, and I think he plays like kind of like you're saying, like you want somebody that doesn't, because like the whole idea of like the big scary drunk Russian idea for it, it's kind of like, I mean, that's not great.
We want someone who like literally can walk in and be intimidating, and then opens his mouth and is like, so guys, what's going on? Why'd you wake me up for this?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Here, hold on, let me get out the Train to Busan IMDb page. It was funny because I was trying to think of, I knew I wanted a woman ambassador for this because I don't know if you've seen Kim Jong-un. So Kim Jong-un might be dead. I think he's actually not. I think he's alive again.
Alive again?
Yeah, there needs to be a website like, is Kim Jong-un dead?
Yeah, but we won't know the answer, and because the biggest and the best thing
they put you on a list.
Well, no, one of the things that the North Koreans have proven themselves to be really good at is hacking. So the only website will just be like, yes, stop asking, no matter what the answer is. There was the big news story a few months ago about how Kim Jong-un was dead and his sister had taken over.
So his sister is apparently also crazy.
Well, and like their whole family's crazy.
Their whole family's crazy, and she apparently is also very like sadistic, and like they're really worried about her taking over. So it's like, yeah, it definitely needs to be a North Korean woman that buys all this and everything. So I started looking through Parasite, which I love, and I'm going to be talking about more. You'll see why. Because all three lead actresses in that are so great in such really different performances.
Right.
Of like super naive, super conniving and evil. But I went with my third choice, or not the third choice. I went with the option I think that fits the best is Jang Hee-jin.
Okay.
She plays the mom of the fake family, of the family that's the family of criminals.
Okay.
She plays the mom that does like shot put and everything. And she has some of the best reaction shots in that movie she's one of the few people that gets to do the, are you seeing this look? And like, she is so intimidating in it. And I love how when she has to be, because in the movie Parasite, they all have to pretend to be servants. And you can tell it kills her the most. Because you can tell she is like very independent and she has to be on her best behavior here. So I was thinking like a character that she's in the war room and it's like, yes, I have to, even though I am a very high ranking officer in the Communist Party in North Korea, I have to be in the room with all these idiots talking and everything. And she is very close to snapping a lot of the time.
Yeah, someone who's very conscious of the fact that they're the smartest person in the room and can't let anyone know that they're the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That works for me. I'm sold. Jang Hee-jin.
Yep.
Great. That is not how it's listed on IMDb Pro, because IMDb Pro just assumes Western name organization.
It is hard to, because I wonder who's going to win out in the end in the Wikipedia IMDb Pro wars.
Yeah, it's a conundrum. I mean, you have to pay for IMDb Pro, so hard to say. All right, so then when I was putting together my list, I made it all the way to the end of the list and realized I'd forgotten to cast Dr. Strangelove. And I was like, oh, right, the title character. Because he, doesn't do all that much. And I guess I'll put this information now. The reason why I cut the only woman in this movie is Miss Scott, who is General Buck Turgidson's secretary who he's sleeping with. And when I was thinking about the character of Miss Scott, I was tempted to do, a gender swap of the character and, secret homosexual affair. But, all those things have been done already to varying levels of success. And I ended up deciding to cut her because whatever someone does consensually in their private life, as far as I'm concerned, really has no bearing on the sort of actions they take publicly. I don't care, and I don't think it's important to an extent. And I don't think we should base our opinions of a character on what they're doing in their private life.
And I think she's there for a really good bit, which is that it's basically just the mistress has to say this top secret crazy information while acting bored.
Right, which I get, and it's funny, but I think it cheapens the movie.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's the first to do it gets a little bit of a way with it.
Sure, that's fair.
And I think that this is a very weird movie to talk about masculinity and chauvinism, because I think the whole movie is to show how the fact that, because even the scene that happens right afterwards, the general weirdly talking about with nuclear arms terms, where it's you just prepare yourself for ignition, baby, and I'll be back before you can count to 10. It shows how they're treating this so blasé because they're men. Fair. So it's, you do need to keep a lot of that theme going through it. It's it's because all these weird, aggressive men are in charge, this is happening.
Right, and I think that that's true, and we can see that from their actions while they're in charge.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to know that this guy's having an affair. I mean, let's say it's not even an affair. Let's say they're just dating. Then there's no
they're just in a nice relationship.
We never once mentioned that oh no, of course I'm not going back to my wife. As far as I'm concerned, in this movie, they're just dating.
Yeah.
He's dating a secretary, which isn't inherently bad unless he's cheating on someone else with her. Yeah. And so that's fine. He can date a secretary, whatever. As long as they're both into it, great, go for it.
Yeah. And it's funny because you think it's and also it's not that relevant anymore. And then you realize that General Petraeus, one of the most famous generals that was probably going to be president, that was in charge of the war on terror and everything, got brought down because of a sex scandal. And it's
yeah, well, that's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it depends which side. 100% it depends which side. Literally, there will be a sex scandal or what was the California, not California necessarily, the representative who slept with one of her campaigners, and then her ex-husband released a bunch of revenge porn and she had to step down.
Oh yeah.
And she stepped down and then meanwhile all of these Republican Congress people are being outed as pedophiles and they're keeping their jobs. And it's it literally is, which side are you on? Oh, you have a sex scandal? That's how we'll decide. And it's so messed up. And like I said, as long as it's consensual, it doesn't matter. If you're a pedophile, it fucking matters.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I think that, unless we're going to show off the hypocrisy, I don't think it has a place here. And I feel if we have a conversation about that, it might be distracting from the fact that the world's ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I cut that character. So the only other role I have left is Dr. Strangelove.
Yep.
I went first for the last one, so you're up.
Okay. Well, really fast. So the person did you think of a person that could do the triple casting if you did have to do it?
Yeah, it's my person for Dr. Strangelove.
Ooh. Okay, yeah, because I was kind of in the same boat where it's he could do any of these roles, he probably could do it, but I had Sacha Baron Cohen originally.
Ew.
Because at least he can make a unique character for this, which would be kind of worth it.
Yeah.
But then I tried to think of if we're taking off the triple casting, so you don't have to worry about someone that can believably play a bunch of different people.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Tilda Swinton.
Fair.
And this
All
will
right.
and this will also come back later, but I also love how she's done. Did you see Suspiria? It's a horror movie, but did you see Suspiria, the new one?
No.
They just randomly have her play like an 80-year-old German man on top of everything else.
Good.
Just because like she can.
Yeah.
And I think she's one weird, convincing and everything, but I also love how like she does such a good job of making the Tilda Swinton planet. Like,
yes.
when I was talking about characters that are like can see beyond it, then there's some actors that can play characters that live on their own little world.
Yeah.
And especially with the director I'm choosing, I would trust them to come up with like a really good, because I think the problem with Dr. Strangelove that you would fall into is you would bring in another actor that just does a really over the top German accent or like tries to play that same part. And it's like, it has to be something, it's hard to cast this because it's like, they have to do something we haven't seen before.
Yes. I agree.
And the other problem is too, is that there were a lot of Nazis running around in 1960 that worked for the American government and that would be in that war room. So it's not that unbelievable. But right now, the worst we would have are like defected Russians or Eastern Bloc people might be Dr. Strangelove. But it's less, you can kind of play with that very easy imagery. So
yes.
I'll go with other Academy Award winner, Tilda Swinton.
I think that's an excellent choice, and I love your logic behind it. I also had the same thought of like, yeah, it'd be a lot more likely to have a former Nazi scientist working for the government in the 60s than it would be now. And I seriously considered just having my Dr. Strangelove be a brain in a jar with robotic arms.
Yeah.
And just like half of it's doing Nazi shit, half of it's doing science shit. And I thought that would be kind of funny, but I'm like, that might break the world a little bit. So what I ended up going with was I went with a sketch actor who is known for being able to play a wide variety of characters. And I went for a little bit more representation in ways that we did not otherwise have in the movie thus far. And someone who I think is sensitive to these kinds of topics because like the sketch stuff he's done has been conscious of like race relations, and I didn't know where I wanted Dr. Strangelove to be from, but I kind of wanted it to be ambiguous mad scientist. Like, could be from anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'd rather have the guy working for us than against us.
Yeah.
So I went with
well, I think I kind of mentioned, sorry.
No, please.
I think I kind of mentioned before too, that like one of the best parts of him is that all the other, since he's works for the Americans, but he's not American.
Right.
So in the room when he's talking crazy talk, like it's him versus everyone else in the room, including Alexei, the Russian interpreter. And it's like, they're all like kind of staring at him weirdly.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted that, like kind of the Tim Robinson, we all want to find the guy who did this kind of thing. When he's just in the hot dog. So I went with an actor named Arturo Castro, who his sketch show was called Alternatino.
Oh yeah,
and he is capable of playing a wide variety of character.
Yeah.
He was on Broad City. He was in Bushwick, and I just thought his take on a Dr. Strangelove mad scientist kind of character would be different than what we've seen before.
Yeah.
In the same way that he wouldn't just be trying to play the Dr. Strangelove we've previously seen.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of wanted to go with him.
And I don't know if you've seen Narcos. He's weird, and it's weird because he pops up in Narcos.
Does he? Who is he in Narcos?
He's like the son of one of the drug dealers, and you can't see Alternatino and then watch that because it's so weird. And it's kind of like you were saying that like if you have like the Jason Sudeikis character where it's like, wait, what? Although, to be fair, this is a comedy. Narcos is not a comedy, but he plays a very weird, sadistic guy in it.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm down. Let's do that. So that's why I thought Arturo Castro would be a little bit fun and again, make it even slightly less white. So.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, but Tilda Swinton plays an Asian person in Doctor Strange, so that counts.
No, she does not.
Nah.
She plays a Scottish person.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole thing about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Scottish Highlands, which she is also not, but that's not the point. So yeah, so for that one, I'd say let's go with Arturo Castro, which brings us to writer and director.
Okay, this is like one of the easier well, I don't know if it's a layup, but
if you're going who I think you're going, it's a layup.
Armando Iannucci?
Yeah. We both have the same guy. He's done In the Loop, The Death of Stalin, Veep. He is the person to go to for grounded political satire.
Yeah, and especially I think Death of Stalin is the closest thing we'll get to Dr. Strangelove now.
I completely agree.
Of like, no one in the room is wacky per se. It's just the situation is weird
Correct.
and terrible.
Yeah. Like, I did some digging, but it's just, like, every time you find something else that might count, it's Armando Iannucci.
Yeah, I think you could say Adam McKay maybe, but I think Adam McKay has a lot of misses too, especially with like Vice and everything. And Christopher Morris was the other one I was thinking of. He did Four Lions, which is also another similar thing.
Okay.
If you haven't seen Four Lions, it's a comedy about suicide bombers in London.
Amazing.
But yeah, no, and he worked with Armando Iannucci, so it does all tie back together.
It all comes back together. Like, the only person who can do this is Armando Iannucci, and even if we didn't get Armando Iannucci, it would end up being
someone that worked with him. Yeah,
like it's one of those things where it's the Good Omens joke about no matter how long you leave a tape in a car, eventually it turns into Queen.
Yeah.
It would eventually become Armando Iannucci.
And In the Loop, too, is also basically this movie of, like, a slow motion, the world's ending kind of thing.
Yeah. This is, Armando Iannucci has been wanting to make Dr. Strangelove his entire career. Let's just let him do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. We're on the same page. So that brings us to director. I'm going to tell mine because I think mine might be a little bit straight down the line, and I think you're going to have a more interesting choice. So I'm going to let you go second. So I wanted to go with someone who has a history of being able to really work with a variety of weird characters to come together to figure out an issue, and then all the rich people turn on the poor people because it's their fault and they deserve to die.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I mean, I think it's weird because the reason why you can't put Armando Iannucci in the director's chair too is that Dr. Strangelove also has a lot of stark visuals. Like, it plays a lot with it being over the top entirely. And Rian Johnson definitely is, in terms of, like, you know, cinematography and like his crazy way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, he creates a good visual story, and that's part of why I didn't want Rian Johnson to be the writer. Like, because I briefly considered having him be my writer and director, but I'm like, you got to get someone else.
I love most Rian Johnson movies. I have some problems with Looper, but like, I think he is a very good writer, but I think he is like a very like Swiss watch type of writer where it's like everything has to be perfectly in place, and it doesn't allow for a lot of like the sloppiness in this that kind of makes it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like being able to control it, yeah.
I think he's able to let actors play, but I don't know if he's as good at writing let actors play.
Yeah, exactly. And so for mine, yeah, I was thinking like it's like, hey, who can line up with Kubrick to do this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
In terms of to be able to do comedy, but also really have a visual style that, in this case, one of the huge things I love about him is like his set pieces are amazing, and the way he directs like rising tension. And also it doesn't hurt the fact that he's also from the continent, or it doesn't hurt the fact that he's also from the peninsula. So I chose Bong Joon-ho.
I thought you might.
Because I was hinting with using Parasite and Tilda Swinton, where it's like, yeah, you just give them Tilda Swinton, they'll come up with a fun wig. I think he is such a good director in terms of one, having comedy, because there's a lot of like really good Korean directors that have like really good visual panache, but he's one of the very few directors that can do visual comedy in terms of like a scene blocking, or like there's a scene in Parasite where the family's coming home and they're going to be in the house in like 20, they say it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, they say it's like they're going to be in the house in 30 seconds, and so everyone's running around and doing it, including our ambassador Jang Hee-jin kicking somebody down a staircase, and it's timed so perfectly that it's like such a fun sequence, and I would really want to see what he could do with this.
I feel like the closer slam dunk to get us to do Bong Joon-ho is Snowpiercer.
Oh, yeah.
Because he already has a take of like, this is one visual way the world can end, and this is kind of a representation of the end of the world. Let's talk about the moment that leads to that, and I feel like he'd have a lot of fun with that as well.
Yeah, he'd be able to do this, and then the sequel when we're all starving in trains. But I think, yeah, and in that case too, like his action scenes are so nuts. This would definitely be more fun. And I think he could also bring something different, because we were talking about the Saving Private Ryan scenes, and there is some violence in this movie. He would be able to, he'd be able to one-up Kubrick in there. He
would, and he would be able to keep it a little bit more grounded and avoid it being like the like a Marvel slugfest. I don't think has any place in this movie.
And I think he is also, he does a lot of really good Korean satire, and the host is kind of about America and Korea, so like we're already pretty close.
Yeah.
So I think he would love doing like a political like movie about it.
Agreed. Cool. Fun. I think that's our cast. Let me take you through what we got.
Okay.
Dr. Strangelove, 2021. Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, or whatever his name will be, is going to be Randall Park. Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper is Jonathan Banks. Major King Kong is going to be Luka Jones. President Merkin Muffley, who's got to have a different name, will be Eugene Levy. General Buck Turgidson is Ethan Hawke. Korean Ambassador something will be Jang Hee-jin. Dr. Strangelove will be played by Arturo Castro. All of this will be written by Armando Iannucci and then directed by Bong Joon-ho. And that will be our movie. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, Dylan, you going to go see this movie?
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm sure it'll be still relevant no matter what year it's in.
Accurate.
Oh, God.
All right, cool. Well, we did it. Thank you so much for being on my show. So now's the time to talk about plugs. So talk about a podcast that you happen to produce and anything else you want people to pay attention to.
Yep. Listen to the To Read list first off and last off. It is great. The hosts are great. I am great on it, editing it and producing it. And I sporadically come in and win games sometimes.
Yeah, you're basically a ringer. If you're in the game, we know who's going to win.
Well, it's because they do weird improv-y games where it's like, oh yeah, no, this is basically improv games. But then everything else, like I'll be playing it in the background. It's like, oh my God, thank God I don't have to do this.
Oh no, memory games? I'm out.
Yeah. And sadly, RIP. I know last time I was here plugging the hatchery, but the hatchery closed down.
I know. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Do you have some social media you'd like people to follow?
Yes, at Dillon MW on Twitter and Instagram.
Cool. Fun. All right. If you're interested in following me, I am at Sam Gasch, SAMGASCH on Twitter, or you can follow the podcast, which is Ideal Remake on Instagram and also Twitter, or you can join us on Facebook, Ideal Remake or Ideal Remake Podcast. But the best thing you can do for my podcast, for Dylan's podcast, or any podcast would be to go and leave us a 5-star review. It's the best thing you can do. I know every podcast talks about it, and they say leave us a review, but no, I'm going to do one better and say go on and leave reviews for all your favorite podcasts.
The fate of the world depends on it.
Accurate, because who knows when we're 2 hours away from death, and you don't want to be sitting there regretting that you didn't say something nice about a piece of media that you enjoyed. Cool. So Dylan, we'll end with this. What is your favorite quote from the movie Dr. Strangelove?
It might have to be the Coca-Cola line, I think. Just because like everyone gets a cool zinger except there's one guard, and then they're about to shoot. The guy needs a quarter to call the president in 30 seconds. And so he demands him to shoot a vending machine, and he says like, okay, I'll do it. But you'll have to answer to Coca-Cola when this is all done.
Yeah, that's a great line. All right, Dylan.
What's yours?
That's it. I don't have one. So I'll just say, hey, we'll meet again. Cool.
Stay safe and guard your fluids.
Monsieur! It's a rock!